Hi, this is Frank, and we're now moving into the critical area of safety and regulation with the Oklahoma Hazmat practice test. Carrying hazardous materials requires strict adherence to federal rules, especially concerning placarding, segregation, and emergency response. Let's get straight into the questions. A shipment contains 1,005 pounds of a corrosive material, Class 8. How many placards must be displayed? 4, one on each side and end. Placards must be visible from all directions. Let's continue. When transporting hazardous materials, where must the shipping papers be kept while en route? On the driver's person or in a document pouch on the driver's door or on the passenger seat. They must be immediately accessible to the driver or first responders. Moving on. If your vehicle is involved in a collision while transporting Class 1 explosives, how far away should you move the explosives? At least 200 feet. This distance minimizes the risk from the collision itself. Time for the next question. The numbers 1 to 6 in column 7 of the hazardous materials table indicate that the material must not be loaded or stored with incompatible cargo based on the segregation table. This column is key for preventing dangerous mixing of materials. Next up, what is the maximum distance you can legally park your placarded vehicle near a bridge, tunnel, or dwelling without permission? 5 feet. Parking regulations are strict to protect public infrastructure and housing. Let's continue. How long must you run the pre-trip inspection for a placarded vehicle carrying Division 1.1, 1.2, or 1.3 explosives? No more than 2 hours before the start of the trip. Due to the extreme hazard, the inspection must be recent. Moving on. When is it acceptable to smoke near a placarded vehicle carrying flammable materials? Never, while loading, unloading, or within 25 feet of the vehicle. No open flames or smoking are permitted near these materials. Time for the next question. The hazard class of a material must be on the shipping paper immediately following the basic description. Which class is poison? Division 6.1. It is critical to know the proper class division for required materials. Next up. When loading or unloading, how must a flatbed vehicle carrying hazardous materials be placarded? Placards must be securely affixed to removable devices. The placards must be kept secure and visible during the entire operation. Let's continue. What does the abbreviation RQ on a shipping paper indicate? Reportable quantity. This means the shipment exceeds the legal minimum that must be reported if spilled. Moving on. What must you check about the tires on a placarded vehicle before every trip? They are properly inflated, not overheated, and free of oil or grease. Overheated tires can be a fire hazard. Time for the next question. What is the proper sequence for the basic description of a hazardous material on a shipping paper? UNNA ID number, proper shipping name, hazard class division, packing group. This sequence, known as the basic description, is mandatory for clarity. Next up. When should you use your horn on a placarded vehicle in an emergency? Use it only to warn others of danger. It should not be used for signaling general traffic. Let's continue. What does the hazard class 3 represent? Flammable and combustible liquid. This covers common cargo like gasoline and diesel fuel. Moving on. When placing placards on a vehicle, they must be diamond-shaped, vertically mounted, and visible from the direction they face. Visibility and orientation are regulated standards. Time for the next question. When must you attend a placarded vehicle? When loading or unloading class 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 8 materials, or when loading or unloading all hazard classes of bulk packaging. Attendance prevents accidents and unauthorized access. Next up, if you are carrying non-bulk shipments, Table 2 of 2 different hazmat materials, both totaling less than 1,000 pounds, must you placard? No. As long as the aggregate gross weight of all Table 2 materials is under 1,001 pounds. The 1,001 pound rule is the key threshold for placarding Table 2 materials. Let's continue. What must be on the Emergency Response Information ERI document? Immediate hazard, fire explosion hazard, fire control, and spill procedures. This document tells responders exactly what to do. Moving on. What is the rule regarding the use of fuses or flares on a placarded vehicle? Never use flares or fuses near vehicles carrying flammable liquids or gases. The open flame of a flare can ignite flammable vapor. Time for the next question. What does the danger placard indicate? You are carrying materials from Table 2 that require placarding, but the aggregate weight is too small to require specific placards. It is used to warn of a general hazard when specific placarding isn't required by weight. Next up, what is the minimum distance required between a placarded vehicle and an operating open fire? 25 feet. This is the mandated safe distance to prevent ignition. Let's continue. What does a yellow sign with a black flame over a circle, class 5.1, indicate? Oxidizer. Oxidizers rapidly give off oxygen and support combustion. Moving on. If a non-bulk package contains a liquid hazardous material, the arrows on the box must point upward in the proper direction for handling. This prevents leaks and ensures the package remains upright. Time for the next question. What is the purpose of the shipper's certification on the shipping paper? The shipper certifies that the package is properly classified, packed, marked, and in proper condition. This certifies compliance with all DOT regulations. Next up, what is the hazard of transporting corrosive materials? Class 8. They attack and destroy living tissue and equipment. Class 8 materials require protective gear and careful handling. Let's continue. What action must you take if you discover a leak in a placarded cargo tank carrying a liquid? Park safely, isolate the leak, and report the incident immediately to dispatch and authorities. Safety and immediate notification are always the first steps. Moving on. What is the minimum number of tire checks required for a placarded vehicle on a trip? Check tires at the start of the trip, every time you stop, and every 3 hours or 150 miles. Frequent checks prevent blowouts, which are especially dangerous with hazmat. Time for the next question. What is the major hazard associated with poison gas, Division 2.3? Inhalation hazard that can cause death or severe injury. This material is extremely toxic even in small amounts. Next up, how long do you have to file a written report after a hazmat accident that requires immediate notification? 30 days. The written report is required after the initial notification. Let's continue. What must be on the vehicle to legally carry radioactive materials? The appropriate radioactive placard. This unique hazard requires a specific placard. Moving on. What must you do before transferring flammable liquids from the cargo tank to another container? Bond and ground the vehicle to dissipate static electricity. Static electricity can create a spark that ignites flammable vapor. Time for the next question. Why is it dangerous to transport corrosives with cyanides or sulfides? They could mix and release lethal poisons. This is a critical segregation rule to prevent toxic gas release. Next up, if you are carrying a load of Class 3 flammable liquid, what must be secured to the back of the vehicle? Fire extinguisher. The required extinguisher must be secured and ready for use. Let's continue. What does a green-colored placard, Class 2.2, indicate? Non-flammable gas. This indicates gases like oxygen, nitrogen, or compressed air. Moving on, what is the required distance to place warning devices if your placarded CMV is disabled on a highway? 10 feet, 100 feet, and 200 feet from the vehicle. These are the standard placement distances for warning triangles. Time for the next question. Which two hazard classes must never be stored in the same trailer? Class 1, explosives, and Class 5, oxidizers. The oxidizer can increase the combustion and explosion risk of the Class 1 material. Next up, what must you be provided with before transporting any hazardous material? The Current Emergency Response Guidebook, ERG. The ERG is the primary resource for emergency procedures. Let's continue. The proper shipping name on the package must exactly match the proper shipping name on the shipping paper. Consistency is required for accurate identification. Moving on. What action should you take if you notice steam or smoke coming from the wheel bearings of a placarded vehicle? Pull over immediately and safely and notify emergency services and dispatch. A hot wheel bearing indicates a potential fire risk. Time for the next question. The maximum concentration of a hazmat material you can breathe is regulated by threshold limit values, TLV. TLVs help determine safe exposure limits. Next up, what is the hazard of oxygen, Division 2.2 non-flammable gas? It vigorously supports combustion, fire. Even though it is non-flammable, it poses a severe fire risk. Let's continue. What is the mandatory hazmat endorsement renewal period? Every 5 years. This requires recurrent training and testing. Moving on. What must a driver confirm about the tank vents before and during transport? They are open, clear, and functioning properly to prevent dangerous pressure buildup or collapse. Proper venting prevents tank rupture or implosion. Time for the next question. What is the rule regarding operating a placarded vehicle through a tunnel? Many tunnels prohibit placarded vehicles. You must consult a route guide or road sign. Hazmat routing restrictions must be strictly followed. Next up, if a placard has the number 1075 on it, what type of material are you likely hauling? Liquefied petroleum gas, LPG. This is the 4-digit UN number for LPG. Let's continue. What is the danger of hauling Division 4.3 dangerous when wet material? When wet, it releases a flammable or toxic gas. This material must be protected from rain and water. Moving on. What does the orange color on a placard represent? Explosives. Orange is the specific color used for Class 1. Time for the next question. What is the minimum number of wheel chocks required to be carried when transporting explosives, Class 1? At least 3 chocks prevent movement during an emergency or loading. Next up, what is the most important consideration when parking a placarded vehicle? Park at least 5 feet from the road, do not park near an open fire or house, and use chocks. Parking requires vigilance and adherence to distance rules. Let's continue. The hazmat endorsement requires the driver to pass a written knowledge test and submit to a mandatory federal security threat assessment, background check. This is required for all drivers transporting materials that pose a security risk. That wraps up our practice session for the Oklahoma Hazmat Practice Test. Keep studying those tables and emergency procedures.